Broadcasting from the Keep Moving Forward Creator Studios, it's time for the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. This limited release show features the stories of the 2019 contestants of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's athletic competition, NBC's The Titan Games. Now here's your host, Katie Galley.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. I'm your host, Katie Galley. In the Keep Moving Forward Creator Studio with me today, I have Titan Games athlete and graduate student, Kara Lazauskas. How are you doing, Kara?
Amazing. How are you?
I'm doing good, too. Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me today.
Of course. No problem. I love sharing my journey.
Good. I'm excited to dive right in. So just to kick us off, I want to start with a question. Where did you grow up, and how, if at all, was your childhood shaped by athletics?
Well, I grew up in New Jersey, right in the center of New Jersey. Actually, ironically, there's a house, about a quarter mile away from where I grew up that was called the Centerville House, which was the halfway point for George Washington back in the day.
Wow.
Between New York City and Philadelphia. So I grew up dead smack in the middle of New Jersey, suburban area. And growing up, really, I grew up with an all-American wrestler as a father. Grew up with a gym, a basement with a wrestling mat, pretty much my entire life. So sports were a very big thing, early on in my childhood. And I actually, at 3.5 years old, ended up having my entire left lung removed due to a post-inflammatory pseudotumor. So I learned from a really young age the importance of building a healthy body and being athletic and knowing how to handle, not only yourself athletically, but yourself in outside situations, academically, and just always striving to do better and to do more. And so my whole life was really shaped at, even at 3 years old, to always be striving for better and always be striving to have, the best body you could possibly have and the best mind you could possibly have.
Yeah, man, that's crazy that at such a young age that you had that happen to you. So at 3 years old, did you really comprehend what was going on? I mean, do you remember the surgery? Do you remember anything that went on around it? Or do you just remember the aftermath and the impact that it has had on you later in life?
I remember bits and pieces. Obviously, at that young of an age, at 3.5,
Right.
you don't remember too much. Here's traumatic, trauma can be shaped in any direction, but
Right.
that type of experience at young age was traumatic for me in the sense that I went through such a serious situation. And I remember certain things. I remember lights. I remember, family visiting me. I remember my mom and dad crying, not knowing what's going on because they actually thought, I had cancer and I was going to die.
Wow.
Ended up not being, so I was very fortunate in that regard. But I think how it's shaped me now when I look back at it, at 27 years old now, is everything happens for a reason. And I think for me, it shaped me to recognize looking back that I was always going to be different. I was never going to be like the normal female athlete. I was never going to be, even outside of athletics, the normal adult. And I just think at that age, experiencing that kind of set that standard of knowing that I was going to have to deal with a lot of different aspects of life, athletically, on and off the court, on and off the field, that most females don't have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, coming from all different directions. So then, I mean, from that age, you said you just you knew the importance of fitness or trying to start to learn about it and living that healthy lifestyle. So did that take the form of you getting involved in sports? Did you get involved with wrestling, or did you go a different path?
Yeah, unfortunately, because both my brother and dad were big wrestling heads, my mom hated the fact of having not only her daughter, but a female wrestling in the family. So I do distinctly remember my mom throwing out Olympic, female wrestling Olympic brochures of seeing all these big, strong females. I remember her throwing out saying, "No female in my house is wrestling." So I took to basketball and soccer and every other sport I could possibly get into. Actually wasn't cleared to play any form of a contact sport until the age of 8 to help my lung develop because I was so young. So that was kind of a big thing for me that I think I wanted to prove the world wrong. I had a chip on my shoulder at a young age, and that still holds true today, as I always know I have that chip on my shoulder. I think that started so young because doctors told me I couldn't play sports. Doctors told me I remember clear at the age of 8, the doctor joking when he finally cleared me for sports, saying, ironically, well, you could play sports, but you're never going to run a half marathon. You're never going to be that, cardio based or that aerobically able to, or that aerobically fit. And I think that stuck with me even at that young of age that no, I'm going to prove you wrong. You're not, you're not telling me how I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to play sports, and I'm going to do better than you ever expected, and I'm going to develop better than you ever expected.
Mm. Yeah. Oh, I love that. There's nothing better than when somebody tells you or thinks you can't do something, and I mean, they don't know you. They don't know you yet, and they know, like, you can persevere, and you're gonna figure out how to make that work. And I mean, it goes along with, like you're saying, how you were raised in your family and the support system that you have, but it also comes with that athlete mentality. I think that drivenness and relentlessness
Mm-hmm.
to refuse to give in and know that if somebody tells you can't do something, well, that makes it, you're going to do it. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I definitely grew up. I was very fortunate, as much as, I learned, my dad's my darkest teacher in the sense that he's a very competitive man. I've learned, I'm so much like him, it actually scares me, because all his weaknesses are also, and strengths are also mine. I've just learned to handle my strengths and learn from my weaknesses that much better to be able to be the best athlete and human I could possibly be.
Mm.
And, when you grow up in a super competitive household, as any athlete knows growing up with, athletic family is, it could be a strain and it can be very, very strict. And you learn that a lot of that is still you and you still love it. But you learn at the end of the day that some of it is going to have to transition at some point in your life. And that's when you start to learn the real life situations.
Yeah, exactly. And how all of those things that you learned are going to apply in that, in that real life. It doesn't just exist on the field or on the court, or within that particular space. It transcends all different areas that you go into. So you said, around 8 years old was that time when you could actually start to play more contact sports and really get into it. And so basketball and soccer, did you ever have a sport that you really were drawn to and decided to focus in on, or all through your childhood and up through high school, did you just play multiple sports?
Until the age, great question, because until the age of, I'd say freshman year 15, so freshman year of high school, I still played three sports. I played soccer, basketball, and then actually did 100-meter dash, 200-meter, and pole vaulted in states
Yeah.
freshman year of high school. But I realized that, freshman year going to sophomore year of high school, I needed to make a distinct change. If I wanted to play a sport at the college level, at the NCAA level, I needed to pick one. I needed to put all my time and effort, all my energy into one sport. And for me, that was basketball. So I stopped I stopped competing in track and field. I stopped competing in soccer. And really what took it home for me is that for soccer, track, that came naturally to me. I didn't have to work too hard to be really good at those sports. And what intrigued me so much about basketball, again, that chip on our shoulder that I alluded to earlier, was I had to work so much harder than everyone else because I'm 5'5", because I'm small for game of basketball, and because there's so much skill and work required to be even mediocre at the game of basketball. And I loved that drive, and I loved that you had to practice hours upon hours every day just to be average. You had to practice even more to be above average, to be excellent. And I loved that factor in the game of basketball, that it was so much of a mental game as it is physically.
Yeah.
And there's so many skills to train. I took to it and loved it so much that I wanted to dedicate my entire life to it at an early age.
Oh man, that's great though, because it's true. It's you tend, I would imagine people tend to gravitate towards the things that they're good at, and if you excel at it, that's what you want to focus in on. But intentionally choosing the things that you're not as good at, maybe you lack that aptitude in that particular sport or in that particular area, and deciding, well, that's the one I'm going to do because I want to be better at it, I want to be the best at it, rather than focusing on the ones that you're stronger at. That is really cool. So then what shape did that take? So your freshman year you decided to go all in with basketball, but you were not as naturally gifted at it as you were the other sports that you had previously done. So how did you put in that work? How did you drive that work ethic that you had your whole life and put it all into this sport and then grow to the next level?
Yeah, I essentially put all eggs into one basket, and I said, look, we're going to do every training style we can. We're going to work hours upon hours. We're going to spend, I remember my nicknames in high school were everything from Kamikaze to Killer Bee to Chameleon's Killian to, I mean, I was pretty all in. I was crazy to a certain extent, but I think you got to be a little bit crazy to be excellent.
Mm.
I would, early mornings before school, 7 a.m., 6 a.m., be in the gym, getting shots up, getting drill work in, getting ball handling in, going to lift after school. I distinctly remember after school getting in the weight room and lifting with all the football kids even at 15, 16 years old. I was obsessed. And after practice, we either had practice 6, 8 o'clock at night or 8 to 10. Even if it was 8 to 10 afterwards, getting the shooting gun out, getting the teammate, getting a coach, getting those extra shots up. Most days, I would try to get up 1,000 shots, every single day after practice. And I wanted to fine tune those skills because I knew I had to put in that work if I wanted to be great at the sport.
Mm.
Just because it wasn't 100% natural to me. I mean, I didn't play a minute of. I rode the bench like riding a horse my entire middle school career,
Mm.
and nothing was better than I never forget one of rival games we had. And I was moved to varsity my freshman year, and playing in that rival game and having my middle school coach come up to me, and I'll never forget it to this day. Come up to me and say, "What happened? What'd you do this past summer? Like you rode the bench in middle school. All of a sudden now you're on the varsity team your freshman year. What happened the past year? You weren't good." And I just remember just smiling and be like, "You just never knew what I had inside me."
Man. And that's such a testament too to it's easy to say I want to be good at something. I want to excel at something. I want to play basketball in college. But are you actually willing and are you able to take those necessary steps to make that possible? You had to take 1,000 shots a day. You had to lift at odd hours whenever you could get in the gym. You had to do those things in order to make yourself successful at the sport. And I think that's the part that's missed sometimes is you set a goal and you know where you're at now and you know where you need to be to get to that goal, but all of that in between, and there's no timeline, there's no timetable for how long it might take you. You have to put in an extreme amount of work in order to get there. And so are you able to do that? Are you really willing to go that extra mile?
Yeah, correct. I always came from the mindset that motivation is BS. Motivation is crap. Discipline is everything.
Mm.
So if you're not disciplined enough, you're going to have days where you're not motivated. You're going to have days where you're like, gosh, crap, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that. But if you're disciplined and set the standard, you're going to do it because you're either all in or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always been an all or nothing person. You're either all in or you're not. That's it. You either want to do this or you don't want to do it. And it will show up in your actions. It will show up in your performance.
Yes. Oh man, I love that. I'm of the absolute same mindset. You're either all in or you're all out. There's no in between because you have to, in order to be successful, to achieve those goals, you have to go all in. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes to walk through all those doors, kick them down if you have to. And I love I really love what you said that you have to be a little bit crazy to be excellent. And that's true. You have to be willing to do things that others are not willing to do. And just put yourself out there, put yourself on the line.
Correct. You have to be able to. And especially nowadays, I have so many young athletes. They're like, what do I got to do? What do I got to do? I was like, well, you're not doing enough, first of all. And
Yeah.
so you're telling me all the things I want to hear, but you're not showing me anything I need to see.
Yeah.
You need to show it. It's nowadays in sports, it's a whole nother level. It's a whole nother game. Everybody thinks they know what they're supposed to do, but no one actually does it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That's a great point too, and it's easy to tell too when they're those that are actually willing and they're actually putting in that extra work. You can always tell those ones that are setting themselves apart because they want to and they're intentionally choosing to. So from that time, I mean, your freshman year and you began to excel, you made it to the varsity team. What then was your journey like through high school and beyond with basketball? Did you had aspirations to go to the NCAA level? You wanted to play in college. So then how did that set you on that path, and were you able to make it to the collegiate level?
Yeah. So I made it to, long story short, I did make it to the collegiate level.
Yeah.
I spent hours and hours gym throughout my high school career. Essentially my entire high school, up until high school, even in high school, my life was based upon athletics. Doing well in academia, but athletics, that was my entire life. I had no other life outside that. I didn't even go to my own prom because I wanted to get shots up. I wanted to get practice, and I had 8-year practice on that. I remember that 8 years practice, and I'm like, no, I'm not skipping practice to go to a prom. I don't need that. I got dreams here that are bigger than this. And so, throughout the course of my high school career, I ended up getting, a bunch of scholarships, ended up having, take lower level mid-major Division I schools. And things were looking really promising going into my end of my junior year into my senior year of high school. The funny thing that happened is I ended up tearing my ACL at Penn State at a national tournament for basketball. And that's when things started to take a little bit of a turn going into my senior year of where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I went from sky high, like my dream's about to come true, I'm about to play Division I basketball, to shit, what do I do? Where should I go from here? I ended up going to Slippery Rock University, Division II level, to play basketball. I was head over high heels. I trained my butt off, getting my ACL rehab, getting everything right where it needs to be. Came back for my senior year of high school, playing full on within 4.5 months, which we know now isn't the smartest thing, but I was head over high heels and I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I was cleared and everything. Once I got to the NCAA level, I ended up tearing my ACL a year into the season.
Oh, jeez.
And I'll never forget at the height when I was finally, because I was still headstrong on playing Division I basketball. This is something, part of my story I talk to a lot of athletes about. It doesn't matter what level. If you're healthy and you do well enough, you'll play overseas. You'll get where you need to go professionally or semi-professionally. But I was so headstrong on Division I basketball that I still wanted to transfer after my first freshman year of college. I still wanted to transfer out. And my summer of my freshman year of college, ended up tearing again at a national level, we call Point Guard College, which is an elite, almost like 5-star basketball, academy. We call it Point Guard College because we treat everyone like college athletes. I'm fortunate enough to be a coach and director for now, which is ironic. But I ended up tearing it, there, the day after I was offered a couple of, half rides, things of that nature from some ACC schools, which was the height of my career because I was playing with all the number 1 ranked point guards in the country at that time. Ended up tearing it the morning after at a 3-on-3 kick-out drill, which I'll never forget, and I'll never forget the faces. Tore it again. So back to the drawing board, time for rehab again. I was like, okay, this is the second time in the same knee. We're going to get this right. Spent 6 months rehabbing it. 6 months into PT, again, another thing, just kind of a little trauma ingrained in your mind. My PT said, all right, we're on the court now. You're doing well. I had the ACL spandex on that. That was a prototype for everything. And there's a reason why I never heard of ACL spandex for this reason. He's like, just cut a little harder. Like, you got this. You're healthy. We're 6 months in. You can cut a little harder. It's fine. So I'm like, okay, I got this. Like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get back there. I go to cut. One little sharp, one little less hesitation. Who the heck knows? Boom, ACL out again.
Oh my gosh.
So I tore my ACL a second time, 6 months into PT. So within a year and a half, I had 2 ACL surgeries, reconstructions on my right knee. So I ended up spending that my sophomore year, redshirting, medical red shirt, spending the next time trying to rehab now the second ACL. So that occurred. After that second ACL, ended up actually flash forward a little bit later, about a year later, I ended up tearing it again. So I had 3 ACL surgeries on the same knee, my right knee, which was quite the change and quite the alter in my life, which really made me recognize, who I was and, really to play it a little bit, spin it in a little bit of a forward direction. I went crazy. I legit went crazy. I was like, how do I get a third ACL in this short time? Am I ever going to have a career? What is going on? I'm training harder than everyone else. I'm doing all the right things. I'm listening to all the right people. I had ACL spandex on. I'm seeing the right PTs. I'm passing all the FMS tests. Why me? Having them on, why me? Am I seriously not going to have a career? After the third one, I remember my PT, my orthopedic, my coaches, come and say, you can't have a career. You need to be done. And that moment hit me harder than anything has ever hit me in my life. Rather, my dream, my entire life was devoted to this sport. And now you're telling me my career hasn't even gotten started and it's going to end.
Gosh, That's
I ended up actually having a fourth ACL reconstruction.
oh
So
my gosh.
yeah, I've had 4 ACL surgeries on my right knee.
Did the fourth one happen in that similar time frame, like shortly after or later?
It was a little bit. It was about a year later again. So within that 2.5 year time span.
Did you ever find out why are you just why you're prone to them? Is there some issue with your knees, or is it just really just four freak things that happened?
The first two were freak. The
Okay.
second one, all contact. So, one thing we know about ACL reconstructions or ACL tears is when they're contact, sometimes that's inevitable.
Okay.
My first one, it was, a steal, a drive, big Sasquatch girl, 6'4", you know, Aram pump fake, got her in the air. As I'm going up, she landed on my side. All her weight's on me as I'm coming down the ground. That was, a severe contact one, the first one. And, the best athletes are the best compensators. And I think with my mechanics, I only could compensate for too long.
Mm.
But what I realized, especially now with, my experience, everything I've been learning outside and transitioning in reality in life outside the game, of how much wrongdoing was done throughout my career with PTs, with orthopedics, with medical insurance, coaches, all of that, of realizing that, I had mechanics that I was compensating for because I was athletic enough my entire life, but they were the reason I kept tearing my ACL, but no one was ever pointing them out. I realized later on that I have, extremely internally rotated left hip, which causes, me to always, or throughout my entire career, every time I cut, I was always putting so much more force on my right leg versus my left leg, which over time creates a pattern where, something's got to give.
Wow. Yeah.
And no one ever pointed me out until years later,
Man.
when actually my good friend and mentor, Mike Adengo, who, very fortunate enough to cross paths with him, we were doing, just working out one day, and he's like, he looks at me, he's like, look in the mirror. Your left glute is an inch smaller than your right? I was like, what? No one's ever brought that up. When we're looking at it, we're doing some tests. It's like, oh my God, I've seen world-class PTs, world-class, the Dr. Freddie Fu created the double bundle ACL surgery, and no one's ever said anything.
Man.
So I felt very, wronged.
Right.
I felt very like all this work, I trusted all the right people, and this still occurred.
So how did you, like you were saying, you got to the point where you were just so frustrated and just angry at everything that was happening. The fact that this injury kept occurring, it kept recurring. And no matter what you did, it seemed like it wasn't going to stop happening. And so when you were told that your career was done, and even all the surgeries and those interim seasons leading up to that final time where you were told you had to be done with your basketball career, I know that taking that is, I can't imagine how difficult that was to hear it, but how you manage then from that moment forward to successfully transition out of that space. And because when you play a sport your entire life, you put that much of yourself into it, your identity gets so wrapped up in it, and that's who you are. Effectively, that is who you want to be identified as, because that's what you put all your time into, all your work ethic, all your hard work into. So how did you navigate that transitional piece of that effective loss of your identity and then moving forward into this new season?
Yeah, so it was, just like you said, it was quite the transition. It was quite the shock in my life.
Yeah.
And, I had a couple crazy moments come from there. One of the biggest life-changing moments for me was, recognizing that basketball was the Band-Aid to my life. It compensated, and it made me safe and made me comfortable and kept my sanity for dealing with actual life.
Yeah.
And I ended up, again, another long story, really a lot of rabbit holes in my life, but I ended up dealing with bulimia and anorexia, and going actually on, this is probably the lowest point of my entire life, out in Pittsburgh, and having your coach and her husband and your teammates visit you in a psych ward for a week, because I went that crazy. I ended up, going down to 95 pounds, not understanding who I was, not knowing where my life was going to go, thinking my life was over. If I can't play, I say this to a lot of basketball athletes, a lot of the young ones, because they always love to say, ball is life, ball is life. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Learn from me. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and what happened to me. Basketball, I lost years of my life because I thought basketball was life.
Yep.
Basketball is not life. Sports are not life. Life is life.
Mm.
And you need to have the ability to transition. You need to have the ability to understand who you are outside the game, because otherwise, when the game ends, and the game will end, you need to know how to deal with actual life. You need to know how to transition. You need to know who you are outside the game,
Mm.
because I didn't know who I was. When I lost the game, I lost myself. I lost my identity. I lost my sanity. And there went my sanity. I went clinically insane.
Man. And so I mean from there just and again, you like you're saying losing that identity, it's not I feel like it's something that's difficult to describe to someone who maybe wasn't an athlete or didn't feel their life defined by something in that way. I mean, you played the sport of basketball your entire life. You went all in, and that was what you wanted to be defined as. That was what you dedicated your life to. And then not realizing, I mean, at such a young age that eventually, and no matter how, what level a person gets to, at some point your athletic career has to come to a close. There's just physical limitations. At some point it ends. So are you prepared for that ending? How do you navigate that transition out of it? Who is helping you get through it? And it's just, there's so many questions that come up. And so the fact that now that you get to pour into these young people and tell them, look, that's not the reality. Basketball is not who you are. I know who you are. You have to know who you are outside of this court. And so that's incredible that now you get to use your own story as a platform to help the next generation successfully transition into that next phase. So, but I mean, from there, being in that psych ward and then truly not knowing what was next, not knowing who you were, what was something or what was the thing that pulled you out of that and started to propel you forward into this next season, knowing that, okay, my identity is not wrapped up in basketball. What pulled you out of that slump?
I say the biggest thing that pulled me out of the slump, the thing that, I tell every athlete, every client I work with, it doesn't matter your goal, your dream, your aspirations, is having the right support, having the right people around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time, I didn't know who that was. I didn't know where I was going to go. I was very lost and confused. I mean, I grew up my entire life, where my story is, I guess, a little bit different identity wise is, since the age of 5, I've had short hair.
Mm-hmm.
I've been called everything from a man to sir to all, it's my daily life. I deal with it constantly. And that was one of the biggest things that was hard for me to transition, is like, all I knew was sports and being a jock. But like, where's my how do I be a female? how do I be, my same self, the athleticism, all of that, still love fitness, still love health, still love sports. But how do I be what is being a female outside the game?
Yeah.
And that's where having the right support, having the right people who understand who you are in moments where you don't even know who you are, really helps you transition to the next level and transition outside of life. And I was very fortunate to have, my family, my mom, who I'll never forget, crying in the hospital when I was going through, rehab and, in the eating disorder unit, which I'll never forget, and seeing the people that I saw in the situations. I was like, I'm never coming back here. I need to get healthy. This is unreal. And, having the support of my mother, having the support of, very good friend who's my family, Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who, took me to places and made me recognize who I was outside the game, and, how much I have and how I could take those same skills and use it to help serve others, and use my story to help serve others, use my knowledge to help bring people to the level that I was never been able to get taken to, because I didn't have the right people around me at that time. But now I do. And that really helped transition me slowly but surely. It was a bit of a process. I would say it took me a good 2 years to go back to school, to get my degrees, to understand, still love sports and still compete, and still compete in the gym, compete, academically, compete athletically, but understand that now my purpose is service, and now my purpose is helping people that were my age back then, help them understand the things that I wish I understood them.
Yes, I love that. You essentially in yourself, you've created the resource that you wish you would have had at that time. And now you get to be that person for those athletes, those individuals in transition who need it, just like you needed it so badly. Now you get to be exactly that person that you needed in your life at that time. And that's an incredible thing that you've done. And it's simply by living your life and experiencing it and deciding that you weren't going to let it get the best of you. You were going to figure out how to persevere and how to get past that and how to learn to root yourself in something so much bigger than your sport, than who you are circumstantially, rooting yourself in something bigger than who you are. And that's that's just really, really cool. And I know it transcends your whole life. Like you say, you coach and you're a graduate student. It gets to infiltrate all of these different areas.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the beauty of it. And that's, I say the universe, whoever you believe in, but I always say the universe knows your plan before you will ever know it. It'll take years maybe to find out, but everything that happened to me, all those situations, I still think about it sometimes. I still have those moments of, man, I could have been here. I was going to be there. I was going to be playing overseas. I was going to have that contract. I was getting there. Life happens, though. The universe had a different plan for me, and it took me a couple, months, years to recognize that. But once it clicked, once I recognized that, I realized how much higher of a purpose I needed to serve and what my direct goal was in life, how I was going to transition and what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. You had there was a bigger purpose in store for you, and but then, like you're saying, it comes with accepting that and realizing it. And not to say that once you realize it and accept it, you're completely fixed and you're never going to wonder or wish and hope for things, wishing that things were different. But it means that you're never going to go back to that pit, that hole that you were in before. You're never going to let yourself fall back there because you know better now. You know that your purpose is far greater than what it ever was on the basketball court. And that's such an incredible thing. So from that moment, having that community, those people that helped pull you out of that and having that right support system, did you finish your collegiate career academically? You got a degree, and then did you go on to you're in graduate school now? So what was that like? What did you get your degree in, and how did you end up on this path towards graduate school?
Yeah, so it all happened because how I got on the path is I got my undergraduate degree from William Patterson eventually after transitioning, finally getting ready for academia again.
Okay.
I transitioned, and finally got my, undergraduate degree in one semester at William Patterson University, which many people don't know about. Many people think I got my degree from Rutgers or Slippery Rock, and I didn't. I ended up spending a semester doing, a case study and getting my undergraduate degree in exercise physiology from there.
So
From there, I started working full time. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I didn't mean it. So when your basketball career ended, so you stopped at Slippery Rock, your career, you decided to stop academically and athletically. So everything there was put on hold, and then you decided to go to William Patterson?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually, a little break in between, I actually was at Rutgers for a year and a half.
Okay.
And that's when I started to find my love and kind of transition a little bit in my life, working with Dr. Sean Arnett and working, I tried actually, fun fact, I actually tried walking on to Rutgers University women's basketball team, and my knee just couldn't handle it. I practiced well, but my knee was blowing up every single day. I still, even after coming out of, rehabilitation, everything, I still thought I was going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And came close, but my knee just blew up every single day. And I was like, you know what? I guess it is time. I guess it's time to give it. So I still had that mindset of I'm going to still do it.
Yeah.
Forget it. For ACL, I can do this. Division I, Big East at the time. I can still do this. Going to the office and having to tell the coaches and everything, and it was a hard realization of what, it's time to move on. Yeah. So I spent a year and a half continuing studies at Rutgers University, and then eventually gained the courage and decided to transition from Patterson, because Rutgers wanted to keep me another 3 years. Yeah. And I was like, oh, no, I got junior level credits. So got my undergrad degree in exercise physiology, at William Patterson University. And once I got that degree, I spent the following 2 years working full-time as a transitioning coach, running several facilities, going the SEAL Fit. Actually did biggest change in my life was going to SEAL Fit's Kokoro 50-hour training events in Encinitas, California. Wow. That's why I started to fall in love with California, and that really changed my life, going to Kokoro with Mark Devine and meeting those people, because through that I met Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, and we started working together. I would take the train to New York City, then work during the weekends, during the weekdays. I worked full time at a driven in Dover, New Jersey, and with Mike Adengo at Freak Strength, doing all that. I kind of had it made, and I was coaching high school basketball, doing all these things, really starting to get control of my life in a certain extent.
Yeah.
And it was just one cold day in February. Me and Gabrielle were talking, and she's like, "You need something bigger. Do you want to be a strength conditioning coach at this level just with a CSCS your whole life? Or do you want to do something bigger?" And I want to do something bigger. She knows me very well. She knows what words kind of get to me. And she's like, "How about we do this? Look at this. Look at this Instagram. Look at this university. Look what, Andy Galpin does, Dr. Andy Galpin out of Cal State Fullerton." I was like, "I didn't know you can get a master's in muscle biopsies on professional athletes. I didn't know that was a thing." And after that day, a couple referrals later, applied. Here I go. I'm off to California. I'm getting my master's degree.
Man. And again, I mean, it's just like you've done historically in your whole life. It seems it's you found these different opportunities and different paths that you might want to walk, and instead of asking questions, having that fear, you literally just said, all right, I'm gonna figure out how to do this, and you just up and left, and you decided, I'm going to get my graduate degree, I'm going to California, and you made these changes and you implemented them for the pursuit of progress, knowing that you weren't going to stay stagnant, and because you knew that wasn't all that was there for you. You wanted to achieve more. So you were really, like you were saying, from an early age, you were driven still by that fitness and wanting to learn more and wanting to help people. So I imagine too, then getting involved in this particular field, has it been your own experiences with your torn ACLs? Did that kind of help you decide what area you wanted to get into?
Yeah, definitely. I was always super interested in, at early, especially with the ACL surgeries, with PT and biomechanics. And, again, really for selfish reasons, I started falling in love with all of that, biomechanics, PT, rehabilitation work, because for selfish reasons, trying to figure out why. Why was I wrong? Why did this happen to me? And then it transitioned into, what makes a healthy athlete, though? What's performance indicators? How can I go stretch beyond PT? Because PT is pretty cookie cutter for the most part, which is what I hated. It's like not everyone's different. Why are we, same ACL doing the same thing for everybody? There gotta be something more to this. So I fell in love, once I saw what, Dr. Galpin or Andy was doing out here. I realized, wait, there's stuff going on in the muscle tissue that we don't know about, and we still don't know about. And I want to figure this out. I want to learn this. I want to learn what fiber typing is. I want to learn, what makes a high level, a high performer, and what makes the average Joe. And that's what really set the standard for me is, this is the only place in the country you get your master's in this. Most times you need to get your PhD to work with muscle biopsies, fiber typing, and protein signaling. And that was it for me. I wanted to know what's going on at a muscle cell, what's going on at a single fiber level. What makes an elite athlete? What makes a sedentary? What makes a diseased, patient or clientele? I wanted to know. I wanted to know everything.
And so, is that now what you're pursuing? So you're studying. So what? You're studying that. So what do you hope to, like, when you get your graduate degree? What do you want to do with it? Do you want to go into physical therapy? Do you want to? What path do you envision yourself down?
The greatest path that I envision myself down is one of continued service, not only for me athletically, but also educationally. I believe it doesn't matter what degrees or certs you have, but if you're continually educating yourself, you're going to get somewhere.
Yeah.
Especially in this field, everything's changing. For me right now, I'm working with 2 professional street skateboarders. I'll probably be staying in LA, Orange County area to prepare them for the 2020 Japan Olympics.
Wow.
So that's something that's a dream come true for me to be able to say I'm coaching Olympic athletes.
Yeah.
Especially in a culture where, they're the misfits. No one cares about street skating. They're the first time they're in the Olympics, and it's amazing the journey we're going on as of now. And after, I'll be soon graduated next week, and I'm going to be transitioning into working with these athletes, working with high performers at every level. And where I see myself is continually to be a physical preparation, trainer, coach. There's so many different names now. I've heard movement sport coach or just transition coach. I'm just a coach. I'm going to be coaching the best athletes, and any athlete that you know is as selfish with their time as I am mine, and wants to continually improve and be educated and train appropriately.
Oh, man, I love that. And that really is so cool that you get to pour back into, like you were saying, serve others, but in a way that you never anticipated or could have possibly
No.
anticipated because it's the journey that you're on being so one track minded on basketball, 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 and then having no
Mm-hmm.
idea where it was actually going to lead you. It really is incredible what happens when those doors open and you have to decide to walk through them, but when you do walk through them, what really waits for you on the other side.
Yeah, and one thing that was the hardest thing, and I still deal with this to this day, when you're once an athlete, always an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
I still, tell even myself included, that transitioning from being a full-time athlete to being a full-time coach, and partial athlete, you
Mm-hmm.
know, is it's selfish. When you're an athlete, it's a very selfish journey. It's
Yeah.
all about you. It's all about your performance. It's all about, yeah, your teammates, but it's all about how well can I perform?
Mm-hmm.
How well can I do? So then I'm transitioning, and like any athlete of the athlete mindset, now you're transitioning from a selfless position where now it's not all about me. It's about the people I'm working with. And that mental, emotional, physical transition is something that takes time, and not everyone can do it because, I have a lot of friends of mine that, they still want to be full-time athletes and then coach people on the side. You can't do both. You're
Yeah.
either a full-time coach or you're a full-time athlete. Doesn't mean you can't still be physically fit and still train, but it's time you're now selfless instead of selfish.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point because it's true that whole mentality it has to flip, and then I mean in order to be even a good coach or a halfway decent coach, you have to have that mental shift. You can't be selfish anymore because it can't be a self-serving act. You have to genuinely want someone to do better, genuinely want to pour into someone, and not thinking that you're still the athlete. And it also comes with realizing that the athlete that you're coaching or the athletes that you're coaching don't necessarily think the same way that you do and don't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
approach the same situations that you do. And so I know that as a coach, that's hard to kind of have that additional shift in realizing, okay, this person thinks differently. So how am I going to approach the situation and not get needlessly frustrated with them because they're not seeing it the way I see it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool the growth that happens when you allow yourself to be that coach.
Yeah, and that's why I love this industry. I love anything to do with physical preparation, anything to do with nutrition. This anything that has to do with the human body, I'm obsessed with,
Mm.
and I think you have to be obsessed in this field because everything's constantly changing, and it's crazy to me how much of an art this science is. That's where the art of coaching comes into play. You know, it, you have to know the personality factors too. If you're an athlete, you have to know the personality factors of yourself,
Right.
and know that not every athlete is going to work well with you. But can you figure out yourself as the coach, as the trainer, how can I use different verbiage, different cues, different training methods to help this athlete understand and help this athlete grow? Because again, it's a selfish act. It's not about you anymore. It's not about your personality. It's about the athlete's personality. It's about your client's personality and how you're going to break through to them.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That really is a great point. Because then that's gonna set the stage for whether or not you can be a coach because not all just because you were a former athlete doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna be a great coach or that's necessarily the path that you should
Mm-hmm.
take. But it does. You have the opportunity to be that uniquely qualified person to coach the people that you had the opportunity to be an athlete in that sport for. So from that journey, so now you love what you're doing. You love being in this industry. You love being able to coach and help people on their own journeys. But then, how did through everything that you're doing, how did the opportunity come up to be an athlete on the Titan Games?
I started off as a joke. One of my very good friends, Cherie Marshall, who I played, we were teammates at Slippery Rock University. She was when I was a freshman, she was a senior, and she kind of took me under her wing. In social aspects, she saw from the get go how I was no social life, everything's the devil except for playing sports. If you're not in the weight room, you're not trying. You're not on the weight, So I was, I was obsessive, and that's still to this day something I continue to learn myself. That when I'm in, I'm in. That's it.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me, what was funny is she sent me an email. She's actually, an officer out here in LA, which is ironic. We're both out in California. She sent me an email, a voicemail, a text message. She's like, if you don't apply for this show, I'm applying you. You're too perfect for this. And this was, a few months ago, say back in, it was back in March. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing this. This is silly. This is NBC. Like, I know how this stuff, I know how entertainment rolls. It's 100,000 million people that are applying. They'll pick like the crazy ones who train, the celebrities or this. Like, it's all for entertainment. They're not going to pick actual people. Well, I get one phone call. My application video was quite hysterical. It didn't edit or anything. I applied like an hour after the deadline. I was like, this isn't happening. This is silly. It's a waste of my time. And got one call. They said, their piece. I was like, you say that to everyone. And it's like, this is entertainment. NBC, like, they'll say anything to anyone. And then a couple months later, I got another call, and they're like, it's 99% chance you're going to be on the show. Like, can you be this location in July? I was like, for a combine, I was like, are you sure? Are you sure? Like, what's going on? I was still confused. I was like, again, probably say this to everyone. Like, this is, again, entertainment. They're going to say to everyone. And I was starting to go combine, and then a couple of weeks later, did well, did my thing. You can't think too much into it. Again, it's Hollywood at the end of the day. You can't get too wrapped up in things because anything can happen. And then I get a call. They're like, you're on a show. I was like, what? I was like, what is going on? I was like, what is, having those moments of like, what is life again? Why me? Like, okay, I kind of get it. Like, I am pretty different. I got, lifelong tattoos now on my arms. I got the sleeve. I got the short blonde hair. Like they're probably picking me as a different one, which was true because, again, I'm the only one on the show with female short blonde hair, tattoos, and I was painted as the badass. But it was the most incredible journey and ride I could ever take in life, and taught me so much about the industry that you can't have unless you're on a show like this.
Man, yeah, I mean, I bet, and it does seem so perfect for you. I mean, just constantly brawling and fighting your whole life, and so to have the opportunity to compete and be a contestant on a show like this, and I mean, created by The Rock, who has a similar, overcoming insurmountable odds and successfully transitioning when he himself was injured too, and I mean, it's just really cool that you got to be a part of it, and the fact that you didn't even think, you're like, this is ridiculous, this is a joke, I'm not going to be able to get on it, but then you did, and you were one of the 64 that actually got to be a part of that show, and it's just a testament to your whole story, and it really is, it's so cool. So I mean, you said you learned so much from this experience, and just coming out the other side. So for you, what would you say your definition of a Titan is, and how has your experience on the Titan Games now shaped you as you go forward, as you're about to graduate, and as you're about to continue to coach these to be Olympic athletes?
Yeah, the Titan Games itself was everything you could ever want out of a competition. I found myself again. I realized how much I love hundreds of thousands of people watching me, how much I love just competing and just going all out and having no regrets, being yourself. I mean, I felt more alive than I had in years being on that stage.
Wow.
And being a part of the show. And being a Titan, what it means for me is being someone who not only knows themselves and knows how to compete. That's only a part of the game. It's being so strong and so, especially headstrong, and who you are and who I am, and knowing how to overcome every obstacle because you are so in cement, you're so strong and so strong-willed in who you are that it doesn't matter what's in front of you. You know you're going to break through, whether that takes 5 hours to complete something or that takes 30 seconds. You're going to complete it, and you're going to go till you can't move anymore, because physical fitness and physical strength is nothing compared to what you've gone through mentally and emotionally, spiritually. It's nothing, because you've already gone through those struggles. The physical stuff is easy. That's time to play. That's time to have fun. That's time to compete. Anyone who's ever been an athlete knows that that's your safe house. That's your safe haven. That's heaven to me. Tell me I don't have to think about anything. I just got to compete. That's heaven.
Yeah. Man.
But going through the mental stuff, that's what makes it Titan. Someone that knows you could throw whatever you want at me mentally. You could say whatever you want to me. You could call me whatever you want. I'm still going to compete, and it's not going to affect me.
Yes. Oh, I love that. It's true. I mean, because it's that physical battle. It's obviously a part of it. It's a huge part of it. But the mental piece, that decision to keep going, to bear down and have that, again, that discipline, but that mental discipline to just persevere, that's something entirely different. And that's something you have to develop, something you really have to instill within yourself. And being an athlete your whole life and everything, all of the experiences that you went through, that absolutely fostered that within you and helped you to get all these opportunities and have the ability to walk through all of those doors. And so, Kara, with that, I just have one final question that I ask all of my interviewees. But with this incredible journey that you've been on, and with you have so much left and so much more to accomplish, and you're going to, and I'm so excited to see the progress that you make in this journey that you're on. But what do you want to be remembered for?
That's a great question. I want to be remembered for my character. I want to be remembered for my ability to shine a light in a dark place, to shine a light in a dark room, that I am a light, that no one who's surrounded by me will ever feel alone, will ever feel like they don't exist, will never feel invisible just because of their life experience, because of what they've gone through. I dealt with that. I know how it feels. And I want to be remembered for the fact that I didn't allow that to break me, and I allowed it to help others. I don't want everyone to feel like they're in a dark place and they have no one to connect with. They have no one to help them. They have no support. I want people to know that they can grow and that I have the ability to help them and serve them in any capacity that I can. My character is something that I continue want to be reminded for, that, you know what, I'm a misfit. I don't belong. Even in a room of 32 females, I still was the outsider. I still was the one who didn't fit in. Even on the show. But what made it so incredible and what made me recognize is how beautiful it is. It's okay to be beautifully different. And I want people to remember and know that of me, and know that it doesn't matter what you look like, your appearance, how you perform athletically or academically. I'm going to help you through. I'm going to be that servant. I'm going to be that light in a dark room.
Thank you all for tuning in to today's installment of the Athletes of the Titan Games podcast. To learn more about each of these Titan athletes, be sure to check out their information in the links in my show notes. Furthermore, to stay up to date on all things coming out of the Keep Moving Forward Creators Studio, be sure to subscribe to the Keep Moving Forward podcast iTunes channel and follow along on social media, also available in the show notes. As the creator of the Titan Games, Mr. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says, "Titans aren't born, they're made." And I hope today's story helped you realize all that you are capable of becoming if you put in that hard work and just keep moving forward.